So, I like to see like it's almost like a mix between, you're gonna laugh, it's a mix between Harry Potter and Mary Poppins bag, and it's like I never know what someone's gonna need. And
welcome back to another episode of Truth Bombs and Bloopers. We are Christina Priska, and today we have an amazing guest, Kerry Kennedy from Scotland. And I've met Carrie last year. It feels like so much longer, but it's last year in human design and Gene Keys container, all about, magnetic branding with Elisa Canali. Actually, we mentioned her before in another podcast. And like Carrie, my husband and I, we just fell in love with each other, and we had all these meetups, and we also worked with Carrie later on with the Gene Keys and human design, especially in connection with love and relationships. And Carrie is like, we just asked her, what are you actually doing? And she's like, okay, I'm like Mary Poppins and Harry Potter and just have these bags of knowledge, and I'm just pulling my tools out of the bag whenever I need it. And we don't do well with labels today, as we've heard, right? But Carrie, would you like to still introduce yourself a bit, what you have been doing up till now, what's your path at the moment, and just anything else you would like to share with people today?
Absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Carrie. Nice to be here. So as Priska already said there, I'm not so big on labels these days, but I consider myself to have been on this self-development journey for almost 12 years now. And studied everything from meditation to energy work, to learning how to paint. Traditionally, I'm a trained singer, musician, come from a background of a family of musicians, dancers, creatives. So you could see that, I've kind of been born into that naturally. And really spent the last 12 years, not only going through my own journey of healing and transformation and activating my gifts, but helping people along the way to really tap into their own inner empowerment and allowing that creative expression to come forward in a kind of organic way that is most natural for them. So yeah, and I'm in Scotland. I don't know if you said that, but yes, I live in Scotland. People seem to love that part.
Oh yes, we do so very much.
It's a big selling point. Scotland, I need to come.
You know how deeply in love I am with Outlander and with Scotland, and you bring everything that is Outlander into my space. I just love it so much. And you're also, by the way, I have to mention, you're also what people would call a witch, right? Because you also do land healings and stuff, and you work a lot with energies.
Yeah, I think that's been something, I wasn't one of these kids who naturally, since I was like 4 or 5, was seeing spirit, was really, really consciously in tune with energy, but the undercurrent subconsciously, I knew things were happening. And so for all these years, just having that stronger muscle of telepathic communication, whether it's with animals, whether it's with babies, whether it's with babies growing in the womb, whether it's land, rocks, plants, just being able to somehow naturally tap in to that kind of communication sphere. So yeah, that's always an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I remember how you kind of threw out a ghost of the new house that you moved into.
Yeah, it actually took I actually had 2 professionals come in and cleared the land of our house. The gentleman who owned the house sadly passed on. I was told not in the house, but later I've had feelings like that maybe did happen. And it's funny because at first, you don't really feel anything. About 6 months later, all these things were starting to happen, and nothing really massively serious, except for, I kept having dead people show up in my bedroom, and
nothing big.
Yeah, and some not so nice interdimensional energies, and like, what that is going on? It was like crazy. So I had professionals, and then I had a friend, a lovely friend of mine in Australia called Demi Jane, who's an amazing shaman, and she goes out to Uluru a lot, takes retreats of people out there. And she said to me, she said, you know, it's not gonna shift until you command the space of the land, because you now own the house that's on the land. And no mistake that you've landed on really ancient land where I lived. A lot of witch territory, witchcraft, a lot of Viking energy has come through as well, apparently. So, you know, you find yourself where you're supposed to do the work you're supposed to do. But yeah, that's been an interesting thing. So I tend to have a feel for when I step into a space. You know, I can know if somebody's passed there, if somebody's lingering, you know, and just how to transform it.
Mm. And from your journey, do you also recognize how everyone gets more sensitive to feeling the energies these days, or like in the past year? I think a lot has shifted within, like the frequency has raised to a point where even I'm having conversations with people who suddenly say, yes, everything is frequency, and really that comes from your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when the lingo or the language starts to travel and ripple, like, and you think, well, that's really interesting. You know, people are just all of a sudden, as you say, like attuning to like these new frequencies and the language of it, and very sensitive. Yeah, definitely noticing that a lot more. In fact, my own father had a massive awakening since 2020, and I'm really lucky that you know, my parents, my brother, my partner, and I are really aware and sensitive to energy. But my dad, he has had that very experience and really learning to be in tune with frequency. So it's interesting you said that. And these are sometimes people in the past who were resistant to doing the deep diving work, you know. But there's many ways to do it now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's anyhow a very interesting question, because we had a lot of conversation around what is happening at the moment in the world, and how can, like, what can we actually do to maneuver best in those times. Is there anything you would like to share about that? Because I also think that you live your life differently than most other people, you know, because most other people have their jobs and they do their things and they just have their rules and just do their like normal schedule, and you really are somebody who's so tuned in on these frequencies and the shifts and whatever is happening, and you kind of have this in the front ground. No, you can't say that. It's a priority, and you like live your life around that.
Yeah, I think like the foundation for me, it's just been, I always joke, you know, like I've kind of lived like a role reversal to like, you know, going along this journey, because for a lot of people, you know, they are still working 9 to 5, they're in a job that they're trying to get out of and live their purpose. Whereas for me, it was like everything dropped dead and did a 190, and I couldn't get employed with the jobs I didn't want anyway. And I was forced into discovering about energy and life and all the kind of spiritual things. And so it's became, you know, my rock solid foundational, you know, focus and intention that is just what the basis of my life is strengthened by. I guess to support other people to learn how they can start to do that and maybe not have to go through it so long or so much in the mud, you know.
Like the mud,
the lotus blooming through the mud.
Yeah, like it's just a running joke. No, you cannot say a running joke in English, can't you?
The
running gag. Like the thing that we always say, because like I'm always the mud, you know, I always go through the mud, and Christina's always, oh, you and your mud again, you know. It's so funny that you say now that people don't have to go through the mud.
I think to like answer your question, and I can only speak to like my own experience, of course, that it's a fine balance right now. It's a fine balance. When you learn to really become fine-tuned with the frequency, and let's just say first and foremost with the earth, it's not all roses and glitter and rainbows and unicorns, and you have to learn to as you merge with earth energy, you're learning to merge with the cycles that she goes through too. And they aren't always sunny, right? And they aren't always still. And you learn then to recalibrate with the different cycles, so that you really start to tune into that abundance frequency and a better health frequency. And I think it's a fine balance between learning to do that in the most simplest practices, but being aware that we need more rest right now, and not to judge that. We need to sleep so much more than we have, because the earth has never gone through such a pungent, potent time. And the physical body takes a long time to catch up to these frequencies, because we are very dense as human beings. And, you know, there can be so much pressure and judgment about, you know, I need to alkalize my body and I need to stop eating meat. And those things I've come to realize, sadly, truthfully, are part of the process, but it's about aligned timing with all these things, about fine-tuning your body with the energy. You can't force these processes, which is why people end up getting more sick, or they, you know, there's like all these things, and it's learning to experiment through experience and take it piece by piece. And it's that fine attunement and balance of taking one thing and doing it differently, trying it a different way. Like if you've ate fast food all your life and now you feel like your body's heavy and you don't feel good, don't try and strip it all away and try to go straight to vegan food full time. Start stopping sugar, you know, because sugar is one of the biggest things that interferes with your channel of energy, and it's everywhere. No mistake, you know. And so start to really integrate and implement things piece by piece, and know when the days come that you have the energy to meditate and connect, and the days where you might just want to go, you know, to the beach, you know, go walk, or when you need to just chill and drink tea or whatever. And then there's some days where you just fail, you know, you feel like you fail and you go and eat 2 cream cookies, and, you know, and it's all part of really this re-emergence to the higher energy field, but it doesn't come by just being completely clean in every sense of the word. That's what I've noticed. And I think people have the biggest challenge, especially people who are maybe just you know, coming online, should we say, to like, you know, energy and frequency and all these healing modalities, meditation especially. I think it's challenging for people because the pressure comes instantaneously, about needing to change everything in order to thrive.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's always necessary straight away, you know. So I'd say balance is the biggest thing. It's learning to just customize yourself to become familiar with what energy feels like first and foremost. Because I was having kind of a conversation with someone the other day actually about human design and the manifesting piece with specific and non-specific, for anyone listening who's maybe aware of this stuff. And I was talking about those of us who have the open solar plexus emotional center. If we're non-specific manifestors, which we're supposed to really dig into the feeling and then amplify feeling of the thing, but not get specific. But then I realized that in our own energy, we're doing most of this manifestation work in our own auric field, not always in groups. And we don't naturally know what emotions feel like when we're in our own space, because we're neutral when we're open. When we're around other people, or if we work with mentors who have definition, then we can really cultivate and strengthen the emotion. But for us, it's more about the frequency of just feeling good in your body and in your energy. It's not really an emotion. It's like just a frequency of that blissful state. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, you know, because I think people do get very confused about emotions.
That's true. I was just realizing, I think we all 3 are unspecific open emotional centers.
Oh. It feels so good and calm.
Nothing is happening. how I experience it is like, as you said, it's like really this in spirit. And when I feel I'm in spirit, then it's just like feeling love.
Yeah.
It's just such a clear yes to something. I feel it in my heart center.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know I have to manifest from there, whatever feels expansive in here. And
you know, that's an interesting thing, because I love, I don't know if you ladies are fans of Joe Dispenza's work, but I highly recommend his work, especially for people who are learning to cultivate emotion, like, and to manifest and to heal. Is that most people, when they start kind of those kind of meditative practices, they don't feel anything in the heart space, and they struggle to cultivate and expand love because it's been so heavy for so long, or they've been so in the lower chakras, that they don't know what it feels like to really expand the frequency of joy or love. And so it can feel numb for a lot of people at first, and it's like fine tuning anything, isn't it? It's like, you know, you have to cultivate and practice, and then piece by piece you start to then really feel love, or you feel joy, or you think of the memory of when you had an experience, and you can go right into the emotion. But it's an interesting thing for a lot of people. They do really feel challenged by that at first.
I feel like the working with the body really helps to crack those things open, because kind of from up there going really down into the wisdom of like going through the body, and then there's always something you can feel.
I agree with that. And I think it's, you know, Priska, you and I have talked about this plenty of times, and even when we did work together, you know, like we overcomplicate when we're in the mental field for too long, you know, and it's so simple when you start to just even place your hand over your heart center, your heart, your chest, and just like in the stillness and in the silence, you're already in the frequency, you know. So it gets to be that simple.
I was just wondering, I think even though I'm an open emotional solar plexus, and you know, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an actress, but I've never had any issues in accessing my feelings. That's something that comes so extremely natural to me. I'm just wondering if it's also, I don't know, if it's just something that I picked up as a child. But I don't know, I was just in my thoughts. I was like, this was never a challenge for me to know, you know, how love feels. I'm very good in knowing how feelings feel. Just the question is, how can I evoke them? And of course, with also being an actress, you learn very well how to pull those, you know, drawers in which you have to feel like you should be feeling in that moment.
I think because you do have to, like, in, you know, in acting, you really do, as you say, it's like, you know what it feels like, but you then have to really draw it out in you know, a scene, or you have to really mimic, you know, mimic the emotion, like really bring it up and feel it wholeheartedly. But I think so many people have been so numb. I mean, they know what sadness feels like, they know what love feels like in most circumstances. Everybody's felt some kind of love generally. But the cultivating of like mimicking it or bringing it up again,
expressing it,
it's really challenging for people, you know, and because we're, you know, as a society, we are not taught to embrace that and encourage that and really strengthen that muscle.
Absolutely. I mean, no wonder when you look into kindergarten and they have to sit still on their little chairs, even, you know, for such a long time from such a young age. And then also, you know, as parents, I really try to give my children the space, you know, if she's angry, to be really angry, but still you're so tempted to just say, come on, it's enough now. You know, like it's such a fine balance. And then in school, you know, it's you almost don't accept it if a classroom is loud and everyone is like expressing their emotions.
Yeah.
So how do you almost have to rewire your system once you are out of that school system, to get back to who you are and what your emotions are, but also what your intuition says.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Unlearning.
And I wonder, is because also this other part to train the I don't know, the thinking mind. I think it is important, but I think also schools are changing now, and people realize that this is really going is a part of our sick society, that the children have to sit still all the time and just be so, it's so one heavy.
There's no room for the expansion of creativity and energy in most circumstances. I mean, there are some great schools out there, but they're very rare. They're very rare. They're usually very expensive. And so most children, by the time they're 6 or 7, I tend to think nowadays it's even younger than that. It's we look at the subconscious mind and the full subconscious development, but I even think as young as 4 and 5, it's like locked in. And people are lucky if they have parents that have somewhat knowledge of focusing on their own healing and trauma work and activating their creativity. But for the kids that don't, it must be really challenging to go through that. Because I don't know about you ladies, but I was not a fan of school whatsoever. I loved all of the creative things. I loved gym time. I loved going outside and all the games and the artwork. But when it came to mathematics and having to get up and speak and do English things, like here in the UK, it would be English. I like that put the fear inside of me, and all of that forcing energy just to conform, and so, I think for academic children who have a lot of definition in their head centers, it's been the ideal, well, not the ideal, but it's been really, an education system that's been more built for children like that, but for those who are, naturally a bit more in tune with the creative flair, their inner muse, it can be a challenging time for them because they don't really know where they fit in.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's so difficult.
It's a fine line. I think there you come across, and like this is not like a topic of favoritism or because all children are wonderful in their own ways, but you do come across the rare soul, the rare child that kind of has that prodigal energy, and almost like their creativity and their energy is miles apart. It's way ahead.
Yeah.
And it's like they're ready to be leaders at 14.
Yeah.
And it's like we don't have anywhere to place them where they can express that leadership still as teens or as children. And you can see it. There's other kids that I know, friends' children, and like they're now being offered to like teach their own dance class because you can see the leader in them. But other children have a problem with that because it's not, the conditioning is not set up to accept or understand.
Yeah, there's
different ways of expression in childhood and development phases.
That's so true. Yeah, like we still have a long way to go as society, and I think the thing is we see all that it doesn't really work, but it's just so hard to change it because it's so big. You have to like to overthrow a whole system. But we don't know. Like,
but I tell all my teacher friends, you can already do so much within your system if you just keep, throwing in your own view on the world and give them some moments. We've been really lucky with the teachers of our children because they're all kind of free spirits who just work for the system but try to do their own stuff, and And then at home, I really try to develop or keep up with that energy that children bring, you know, the intuition, for example. We do that so much at home that, for instance, when I lose a key, I ask my daughter, can you just close your eyes and tell me where it is, or stuff like that, to train really the intuitive muscle that they have, or that they, you know, that they can offer their ideas of how would you do that. You know, they come up with so many creative ideas, and sometimes way better than my own ideas. So you know, also, you know, give them the leadership as soon as possible, so that
I think that's such a good highlight, and I love what you said about, you know, having some friends who are already in the system as teachers, and, you know, that advice is so beautiful, because that's what's missing in so many ways. I've said for years now, I don't have children, but, you know, I've always been really in tune with, I guess you could say, the psyche of the development of children, and they spend the most time, especially here in the UK. I don't know if it's shorter time in school in Europe, but you know, they're in school from 9 till 3 p.m. here, 3:30, and later in secondary school. And they're with, in primary school, that one teacher for the whole day for 5 days a week, more than they spend time with their parents in most cases.
wow.
So they're going to be the most conditioned by the person they're spending the most time with. And so they're going to learn. And it's so funny, because like, I have such good memories of the one teacher that inspired me the most in primary school, who was the only male teacher in the school. He went against the rules. He had long hair. He was a biker. He, you know, he loved to just have fun with the kids and let them be a bit expressive and laugh and have fun. And then I have memories of some teachers that were so set in their ways, with so much anger and bitterness. And that put the fear in me, you know, like, and so, you know, bringing your flair of creativity or your little bit of wisdom on a subject really can do more good for children than just complying completely with everything that you're doing in the job or the role. Bringing in your own little bit, you know, or self-care for yourself, so you don't bring your stress into the classroom as much.
I used to be a teacher too, right? Like, or at least I've learned to be a teacher. I never really taught, but I was teaching. But I just see that the strain on teachers is also like, there's so much pressure on teachers, you know, with this whole thing that they have to work through, and they constantly have to test everything, and you have to go through all this material, and then there are parents that are talking into it, and every parent thinks they know the solution. Just, I also want to put that out, because I know, like, being a teacher nowadays, it's really hard. And then you have all these special need kids, you know, and you have to kind of keep them all in your class, which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like they just don't have enough people to support those kids. So one of my friends, she prepares so much for one lesson. It's crazy, like, just for one class. Like, my God, she actually teaches 5 classes in one class. It's crazy. So I really think the system needs to be revolutionized from, like, really from bottom to top, where kids who don't, as you said, I mean, like, that's crazy to say, right? That it's actually made for people who have defined heads. And when we know 70% of people are just undefined, like, what the hell? Like, it's just crazy to think that we all have to fit in those narrow ideas, how a human has to learn and be and grow, and what to learn and how to, like, everything.
And also the hierarchy, you know, from children and adults, you know. In my, I teach, for many years, I teach dance classes for children. And of course, every stage needs a different kind of leading, every age. But what I just, you know, discovered this balance between giving them structure, but always giving them the feeling that they are part of the leading, actually, you know, that you really include them in, let's say, a creation, or even deciding what music we choose, or what and really talk to them on the same eye level, and they really need that from a very, because this otherwise they will need this outside leadership always if they never learn to speak up for themselves and to have an opinion and to have a
I love that.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And Carrie, what would you say for people, for example, who exactly have this, that they always need this outside voice, or who don't know how to express or even access their feelings? What is the thing that you would give them on the way?
I mean, I think the first thing, you know, like one of like the you know, the proudest, you know, kind of reflection tools I always have with people is to reflect back the question they're asking to them, you know, because so often we're giving away that authority by even asking the coach you work with, or your best friend, or your husband, or your wife, you know, but it's like, you know, like you already know the answer. And especially if we are like sacral authority people, we like responses, you know, we like questions. But if we're asking the questions, we often like to be asked the questions back to know how things feel in the body. So I think that's the biggest thing. First of all, it's like, you know, asking, you know, what did you love when you were a child? You know, even if you didn't get to do the thing, even if you wanted to paint or build a sandcastle and you were never really given that time to nurture that, but you know you have a yearning to that thing, is to tap into that, you know, because it doesn't mean that you know, if you love drawing when you were a kid, that you want to necessarily be an artist. You might, but it has this real deep connection to the inner child, you know, going back into the simplistic ways of I don't know why the word wanderlust comes to me, but are like, you know, like just like that, just free-spirited connection. Because most people don't give themselves that avenue to even be silly and to do the simplest thing like doodle and draw and you know, grab some markers, and just, it doesn't have to be anything, but it's creating energy and it's tapping you in to your force, basically. You know, I mean, and I think that's the biggest thing, because that's how my journey started. You know, like everybody who knows me knows it's been a lifelong journey of impatience. I am not the most patient person in my life. And so I had a lot of frustration and feeling impatient when things weren't just working the way they were before, you know, or I couldn't get the same jobs that I didn't want anyway. And a friend said to me, you know, why don't you just paint it out? Why don't you get some paints and just like, you know, just do something? And so I started, because at that time I was really drawn to sacred geometry, and I then went on a trip to Egypt, and that further confirmed some things with geometry and energy. And I just started to keep drawing like the flower of life over and over again, and creating these paintings with sacred geometry. And I really found that because at this time I didn't feel like I was somebody who was naturally creative, actually. I didn't feel like I had much creative expression. And I was mid-20s at this point, 25, 26, 27, something like that. And I think this is a theme even for people who do have that really creative urge and energy. Along the path, you can feel like you're void of creative expression. And so it really helped me tap back into that, you know, and for me, that's what that was. But for someone, it could be music, you know, or it could be dance or anything really. And I think it's just the simplest thing that you can express yourself and just be with the energy and emotion without attachment to it needing to be anything.
Yeah. And what just came through when you talked about it, maybe it was also because you came already from an artist's family, and often, you know, they probably took on a very strong role already, and maybe your subconscious thought, you know, I want to have my own, and you kind of had to discover your own creative expression. That happens very often. I see that very often. For instance, if the parent is already a musician or a dancer, then and you see the talent in the child, but somehow the child almost wants to lose it or goes away from the talent for a while to come back to its own gift, because the parent already takes in that role within the family. And sometimes when they, you know, when they are grown and they move out of the family house, then the gift comes back.
Yeah, that matches a lot of my story, to be honest. And thank you for saying that, because I've noticed that also, not only with my own experience, but with other people too, that have one or both creative parents. And it's often this unconscious, subconscious pattern where they don't want to outshine the parental roles.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, or are so in awe of their talent that they also feel like I cannot even reach that, so I don't even try. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely, that's so accurate.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the other, I'm the other extreme. I come from a family where there was no artist. That I mean, artists, yes, but nobody made his life based on art, like how they how they built their business, or how they it was more like a hobby for everyone. And for me it was like this story that we all know, you can never exist as an artist, and the struggling artist, and I had to really, I knew I wanted to go that journey, but I had to so many years that I heard that voice within me. You're never gonna make any money, and the struggling artist syndrome, and up till now I sometimes have to silence that voice within me, because I didn't have any examples within my family.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think I often, use the phrase reference points, and for a lot of children in that kind of scenario, like we didn't have the reference points. We had many experiences, but maybe for the ultimate big picture or dream or desire, we didn't have reference points to give you experience of what that would be like, what it would feel like, how it would look, how you could achieve it. And I think that's part of that process, right? Of you have to then you kind of grab it by the horns and go figure it out, and you take the chance and you go through all the different experiences and cycles, and you make it work eventually, and striving for that kind of independent creative expression, really.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. So like there you see again the power of the mind, right? What we believe. I was just thinking also this, you could also translate that to money mindset, right? When you believe making money is hard, or or you have to be super immoral to have a lot of money, or I don't even know, all these beliefs that we have, and other people get just born rich, and for them it's totally normal to be rich and have money, and it's their normal. So we really can choose our reality by choosing what kind of things we want to really believe, right?
I was speaking with someone else the other day, and I was referring to, I always get these little visions or like metaphors or like phrases, and what I was kind of showing to like kind of express or explain this was, when we look at most people again don't have the reference points for like maybe to have a successful business, because maybe their parents didn't, or maybe a parent went bankrupt, or whatever the events in your life were. So we don't have these reference points, but we know we have these soul yearnings, or we really want to be fully fledged in their creativity and be able to be abundant, whatever the reasons for that are, it doesn't matter. And it's true, like, it's almost like then we need people in our lives, whether it's friends, whether we're hiring mentors or coaches, whatever, that basically all they do is you as the soul, as the creative, are the elastic band, and all they're doing is stretching the elastic band in that space with you piece by piece. But when you go back into your conditioning where you don't have the support, it collapses, you know. And that's literally what is required for us to really step into that, whether it's being a, you know, solopreneur or, you know, fully self-employed, living and doing what you love, you know, having successful businesses. And to get there, yes, we can do parts of it on our own, but we really need people or a system or a network of people that can really help to hold and expand the elastic band.
That's a very
love
nice,
that.
yeah. And hold it for, it needs time. Hold it for a while, you know. You know, that's not happening overnight. And as you said, you keep falling back to your own comfort zone and your own conditioning, and it takes time for the brain to rewire and the whole system to that every cell of you really believes what maybe the coach saw in you. And
absolutely. And I think that's such a powerful thing to highlight for anyone that listens, you know, to this episode, because there can be, Priska and I have had conversations about this too, especially in the online coaching industry, and people can get so mentally fixated on when they see somebody living the high life and all the glossy things. And for the record, I think if you can create a life like that and you love it, brilliant. But sometimes it leaves people on the journey that need the support of their elastic band to feel like it has to look that way. And if they're not creating that, where if they haven't achieved it yet, they've done something wrong, they're a failure and they give up, you know. And it isn't an overnight you know, avenue into stretching into a goal or a desire that is going to change so many things for you. It's a progress, you know, and a process. And there's a lot of soul growth that needs to take place. And self-employment, let's face it, or just working for yourself is some of the biggest self-growth you'll ever go through.
Absolutely.
Amen to that. I love that. Carrie, as we're coming to an end, just looking at the time, I would love for you to talk shortly about this frequency machine thing. Sorry, I don't know the word. That you're offering, because I'm so I love that so very much, because obviously everything has a frequency, everything vibrates on a certain frequency, and you have this thing that you can support people with, and we need to know about it.
Yes, so it's called Genius Biofeedback. Now there's many different things for biofeedback out there, but this is one of the first biofeedback softwares that is available on an app. Now there are many others out there and coming, but this is one of the very first to be patented, the Genius. And so, you know, years back, and if you're familiar with biofeedback, with a lot of them, they used really expensive machines. Sometimes they would test hair samples and they would check where you had deficiencies or blockages in your energy. So this amazing tech guy, Ryan Williams, he worked with a naturopathic doctor, and they both collaborated their skills and knowledge, and he created the, transferred, should we say, the data that you would get in an expensive machine to a software app, so that it was more accessible for people. So basically, it works all on frequency and energy, and works really deeply with solfeggio tones and frequencies, the nogies as well, which are the healing ones. And basically, it's so intelligent. It analyzes your photograph, but more importantly, your voice. So you put in a clip of your voice in a little sequence, and it really fine-tunedly analyzes the hertz, the frequencies that it can hear through your voice. So it can show you on the scale of frequencies, on hertz frequencies, where you sit, where you're dominant, and then it will show you what's showing up in your aura, if your chakras are balanced, which stress you have today, chronic things. And basically the way it works, we're not addressing the physical body. We're not doctors or anything like that. We are really analyzing and balancing the biofield, the energy that is invisible to most people around the physical body, which is where most things come in from and start. So it's so intelligent. It can tell you like all of those things, and then it can look at your hormones. It can look at supplements and see where you're having basically reactions energetically. So when we talk about things like allergies, and like, a lot of people have their allergies to gluten and dairy and all these things. And then, we cut all of these things out of our diet. But then comes in something like the Genius and shows, yeah, you're having a reaction on the frequency of something you ate that has the frequency of gluten, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it tells you if it's red, which is a high, that it's right now, or if it's a blue and it's low, it's chronic, meaning it's a reaction you've had over a long period of time.
Okay.
And what starts to happen is you pull in with these different frequencies and it balances out the reaction. So over time, people stop having the allergy. So they could hypothetically have a donut that has gluten, and all of a sudden they don't have the reaction in their body, because that's all everything is. When it works on the frequency level, which we're all energy frequencies, we're having reactions in response to life. So it's an amazing tool with your iPhone, your Android, your iPad, and you can go in and self-scan, and you can work on family, you can work on your pets, you can do land clearing, put in your house photograph. There's so many things. And then it also has the capability for analyzing where you are on the scale of abundance and beliefs and your subconscious. So I look at this as like a back pocket tool. For me, that's what it's been. It's a back pocket tool that I can pull out anytime, and it's a great support for me just to kind of look at where I'm at from day to day, or if I have a specific goal or something I'm still healing. I pull it out, just have a look and see how accurate it's coming up, do some balancing. And also, I like to look at it as the subconscious overrider. So when we know and understand about the conscious mind, the subconscious, and how the conscious mind gets in the way a lot of the time, thinking it knows everything when it really doesn't know much. We love it, but it has its place. And the subconscious is where we really need to go. And so that something like the Genius, working with these frequencies, bypasses the conscious field,
okay,
and allows you to say, like, so let's just say, for example, I'm a multimillionaire, well, that's not physically true for me in my experience right now, but would probably come up and also say, well, yeah, actually, you don't really believe that. So instead of trying to figure out and take a lot of time to work out what are the beliefs that are rooted in there, it shows you day to day where you're having reactions, balances the thing out, and helps to super speed up the manifestation, the healing. So, I mean, that's how I would describe it. It's kind of a frequency booster for life.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And people who work with you, you can help them discover what kind of stuff that they have to run, or like how to, or you can run it for them, because you have been doing it also for example, our dog, which was like amazing for the first time I don't recognize her anymore, really. She is in love with Buzz all of a sudden. Christina, you know the story.
Yes, I know.
I don't know, like since Carrie worked with her, it's amazing. So I'm really fascinated by it, and I really need to learn more. So if anybody is interested in working with Carrie, we're going to put your, I think IG handle is the best, right?
Yeah, Instagram just now. My website's being redone at the moment. It's having a makeover. So Instagram, which is the Kerry Kennedy. That's the place to find me.
We're going to put the link into this description box, of course.
And so it's especially for people who like to, or who are at the moment looking for, who am I, where am I going, and what's my gift? Is it like,
it's really, to be honest, it's everybody and anybody that is drawn to it, or finds themselves connected to it. It can work. I love that. I love my dad. My dad just has so much resistance to doing the deep work. But since I set up frequencies for him, he is more than happy to do that and feeling the benefits of his transformation without needing to meditate for 5 hours. For him, that gives him the peace where he can feel like he's interacting in his own healing, but he's not having to do anything too excessive to get there. I think it's great for people that have resistance in that respect, but it's also really good for people, like even myself. I'm really fine-tuned to energy, and sometimes that means it's still a challenge for the right support to be around me when I need it, because I'm outputting so much. So these kind of tools are good to keep like my energetic boundaries really clear, to look at maybe where I'm over giving. It'll come up and tell me, and I'm like, yep, that was happening today. So, it's good for so many things. It's good for your kids. There's just so many things, so many things. I use the land clearings quite a lot, and I've had a lot of interesting success with that as well. Or your office. If you're trying to sell a home, there's quite a lot of people in real estate who really love it because it helps them sell homes. Or if you're trying to sell a house that's been on the market too long, there's usually interference energetically. So it's good for things like that.
It's actually everything. It sounds so, science fiction, this whole thing. Like, you just have an app and it just puts in frequency into your system, and all of a sudden stuff happens. What the heck? Before you had to do all this hard labor and meditate and whatever, and now you just
but that's really what we're going into now, more and more, to to really base our life on frequency and use it and and
Like Khaleesi and you are like this already. She got so accurate. You are incredible. Like, she has this, and like, how do you know?
And the thing is with animals, it's like babies, they can't yet, dogs don't really talk for the same way we do, but for babies too, they can't yet communicate, or animals can't communicate the way that we do. And we have to fine tune our energy to their frequency, and then we tap into that telepathic channel, but they absorb so much. And because they can't communicate what they're feeling or going through with these shifts, it often goes unnoticed, or you're kind of like, why is my dog crazy tonight? And it's a full moon and there's a lot of things going on. It helps them because they will hold on to things in order so that we don't suffer with the energy alignments. But then with tools like this, they let it go so fast.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
We all need it.
Yeah. So is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners, like some truth bombs for the end, some parting words of wisdom?
I would probably say my two cents to leave this amazing conversation is for anyone listening that in these really intense times, to remember what it feels like in your own body and in your own heart, and to give yourself the gift of more of your own presence than following what's going on outside of yourself. I think those are the two biggest things, but it's really tough in these times to, there could be a lot of truth bombs, but
This is a good one. I love that one.
Where do you want to go?
No, I love that one.
It's the biggest thing for anyone listening who is kind of finding their path or finding that, reignition of their light and their creativity, is just remember it gets to be simple, and it might feel hard, really hard, but just feel what it feels like in your own body and your own heart, and give yourself that gift of more of your own energy, because we are good at being the givers, and it's time to receive as human beings.
Receiving our own medicine. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you so very much, Carrie, for being with us today. I mean, like, we could go on and talk just forever, and maybe we have to do a sequel or so. Yeah. And if anybody has a question for Carrie, you can just leave it somewhere around here, and we will forward it to Carrie. And as said, you can find her on Instagram at the Kerry Kennedy, and we'll link it. And it has been such an amazing conversation. I love you so much.
Thank you for having me, ladies. This was such a stimulating conversation.
Absolutely. Yes.
It was a pleasure. And have all a beautiful rest of your day, and see you in the next episode.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ja, das ist eine gute Idee.
Genau.
Carrie!
Hello.
Hello, my love. So, Christina, this is the famous KK.
KK, we've always...
Well, it's a new one. No one else has really referred to me as KK before, so and I'm throwing all kinds of labels out these days, Like, the world doesn't know what to do with it, and I think this is the challenge. It's like, but you don't have a title, you don't have a this, or you're, we have to put you somewhere, do we?
You're like, shh, leave me alone with your titles.
I think I think just when it's not natural for me, I think is the thing. Like, whereas other people know specifically, like, it's this. I'm like, a whole mixed bag of things. Like, I think a lot of creatives are that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
You feel me?
I think we just start. And somebody has to make the introduction. Carrie, it has to be you.
Yourself.
I'll introduce myself.
Welcome to their podcast. I'm going to introduce myself now. Because we don't like, I hate doing the introduction, but whatever. Christina, do you want to do it? Do you feel like you with your defined throat?
You have the go ahead.
Thank you. I heard the invitation here.
Oh my God. Know that you say you really don't want to go first, but you do. You really do.
Okay, so I'm just trying to say the thing. So, welcome back to another episode of Truth Bombs and Bloopers.